there's, yeah, okay, the question. So thank you for that. He's like, how did these American vessels get in here? And I'll tell you, there is a huge regulatory gap. This is what we've uncovered. This is sadly, you know, what we uncover in these situations. That it's not the first time, by the way, our riding has fixed regulatory gaps on issues. But this is how you know, is when, you know, you ask a question in Parliament, for example, and no one knows who's going to answer it. That's how you know there's a gap. That's the first sign when I look around the room and they're all looking at, is it me, or me? But I'll tell you, there's no monitoring or enforcement of hazardous materials on board international vessels being shipped across Canada's borders. Get this, there's only a voluntary certificate, which is effectively a self-regulated honorary system. This is what we just uncovered last month. So we've been working hard on this, and this is what we found. And this doesn't need to wait for a consultation process with the provinces to come up with a ship recycling strategy. This needs to be fixed now, because we could be a dumping ground for international vessels. Well, we are, but don't think that this isn't just the beginning if we don't really get a handle on it as a country. You know, and there is good shipbreaking facilities in this country, in this coast, in Campbell River, you know, that want to do more. And we have to be responsible, like I said. So anyways, thank you for your questions. I'll be mingling after. I'll take more questions. We'll be fighting. And I'm going to turn it over to really our local champion. And he really is. I can't say enough about this guy. It's Daniel Arbour, local director, okay?
Thank you, Gord. And wow, I'll try to be a warm-up next time. You're hard act to follow. Great to see you all here. And I have to say, you know, of course, I have to start by, same as Gord did, acknowledge that we are on Comox First Nation territory. The other thing that I would say is I really got activated, because for a while, quite often we may not know where First Nation communities stand on different issues. And the referral process is such that it's between the province, federal government, and them, and that's good. But when Chief Rampol came out a year ago with such strong words against this operation and it happening in Baynes Sound, which is their food basket, that provided the fuel, all the fuel I need to keep moving forward on this issue. In terms of Gord, I have to say, like, I was on a flight with a Liberal MP not that long ago, and it's not the first time I hear it, but when you have other parties MPs saying that we have the hardest working MP in Canada, that speaks for a lot. And he has risen in the House of Commons on these issues multiple times, but he's also taken it to committees and challenged a budget officer or something like that on trying to figure out where this piece fits in the federal government. In context, I mean, here we are in beautiful Union Bay, historical community, and, you know, right across the street, we have one of the 10 most toxic sites in British Columbia with the coal hills. The province has promised to cover it, maybe 8 years ago. It takes a long time for the province and federal government to move on issues. At the regional districts, we were a little bit quicker to move on our zoning bylaw issue, because that's really all we can look at on this issue. But I have to say, I'm quite frustrated with how long it's taking us to get through the legal process. And I continue to hear a lot of people saying, can we apply more pressure? I can tell you we are doing everything we can, but it's not the easiest path, and I'm sure there'll be questions on that today. Yes, absolutely. In terms of shipbreaking, as Gord says, the best thing we can do is not only to try to get this operation to cease here, but also to fix the policies and regulations that are missing. So about a year ago, when Gord talks about working in solidarity, we brought forward a resolution to the Coastal Communities Association, that's all the local governments in BC. And we really essentially asked for three things. We asked for the province and the federal government to have a clear regulation around shipbreaking. We asked them to consider adopting other models. They don't have to reinvent the wheel. They can look at the European Union best standards, and why wouldn't we have that here? Best standards, dry dock. We hear CCOBs talking about that all the time. And the third piece, the question was already asked. When you bring new standards and regulations as a government, it's also nice to put a little bit of money on the table so that existing facilities can be updated and that we can move forward in the future with the proper means of disposing of these vessels. It's a crazy issue, and I fully understand why you all here. At this time, I think that a rally like that is exactly what's needed. We collectively, and I think you're with me on this, we're collectively calling on the federal transport minister, on the federal fisheries minister, on the full BC cabinet, because it's going to take the full BC cabinet to address this issue, to deal with greater urgency on this issue. You cannot have a blue economy plan at the federal level and then do nothing when stuff like this happens, which threatens 50% of the shellfish production in British Columbia. You can't talk about coastal marine plans and then have a foreign corporation just show up when people struggle to get a permit to get their house, and somebody just sets up shop and starts doing shipbreaking in the intertidal zone. This is the kind of issue that discredits all levels of government. Friends, thank you for being here today. I can't say likewise, I mean, I was almost blushing there, Gord, but I can't say enough about our MP and his passion on this issue and many other issues. I know this is not a political event, but again, somebody who reaches across the aisle. I was in the House of Commons, and after question period, who is the one person who went across to talk to the Minister of Transportation? And I still don't know if you talked about shipbreaking or ICF, but it's one of the two, I figure. He works tirelessly. So thanks to Gord for being here. Thanks to all of you for being here, and keep applying pressure. We appreciate the pressure you're putting on. Thank you.
What's happening with the civil case?
Thank you. The question is, what's happening with the civil case? So we initiated legal proceedings pretty much a year ago now. And I have to say, it's basically been a full back and forth around discovery and the rest of it between the operator and ourselves. And it's consuming, I can tell you at the regional district, this file is consuming a huge amount of our resources in terms of trying to tackle this. We're pretty small, and we would really appreciate for the province and federal government to join our suit.
Just before,
That business gets started here.
Thank you. Yeah, how did the business get started here? I would say incrementally. So it was a lock sort that was dormant, and then there was some activities. I actually had a site visit a couple years ago because there was a noise complaint. And at the time, I mean, it's a little bit like, it was never a crystal clear plan that they were going to do shipbreaking. At the time, I was told they're going to help transfer their relic vessels and such, which was fitting with a lot of efforts that were happening. There was talks of maybe upgrading the facility, maybe having a hotel. There was a number of different things that were being discussed. But as soon as after a couple of boats and barges, like as soon as staff realized what was happening, right away our staff started saying this is not in accordance with our bylaws. So yeah, it is interesting. I can't speak for the province and federal government. We've spoken at length about the lack of regulation, which means there's not a lot of processes if a business like that wants to get established. Any further questions, or that's good? Pass it back.
I'm going to do one thing. I think we need to send a message to Victoria and to Ottawa. I know you're already doing that, but I want to, maybe we can pick up the volume. I'll do a quick video and send it, and we can turn and look at Kendall after and give him a video, or he can come up here, Kendall. Come on up and let's get the TV up here, bud. I was thinking this, protect Baynes Sound. protect.
Protect Baynes Sound. 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 Protect Baynes Sound.
I just want you to know that you being here, your fight, it gives us even more inspiration, more determination than ever before. So thank you. We owe you a lot. Everybody does on Vancouver Island and beyond. Thank you. Kela kasla.
Please welcome our next speaker, Pacific Wild Marine Specialist. Let's hear it for Sydney Dixon.
So, first and foremost, thank you so much, everybody, for coming out today and for standing up for our beautiful ecosystem here. My name is Sydney Dixon. I'm the Marine Specialist at Pacific Wild. So I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit today about the dangers of heavy metal. I know there's been a lot of news in the media about this shipbreaking site being out of regulation a few times, and I'm just going to speak to why that is actually such an issue and really what kind of biologically this site poses a threat to our area. I know this has been touched on before, but just to open, Baynes Sound is an internationally recognized biological and ecologically significant area. It's really one of the last strongholds for Pacific herring in British Columbia. It's home to thousands and thousands of migratory seabirds that stop over to feed on their route north. It's a sanctuary for whales and other recovering species. And like has been said before, it is the production site of 50% of the shellfish aquaculture in British Columbia. So really a little gem that we've got here, which these heavy metals are threatening. So a little bit about why this is so important. This site has been found out of regulation 4 times in 2022, and on 3 of those occasions, it was for heavy metals being over the regulatory guidelines. Heavy metals are a really big issue biologically in our area, kind of for 3 reasons. The first reason I'm going to talk about is called bioaccumulation. So what that really means is these metals don't go away. They just kind of sit and build up in the ecosystem. And what can happen is they can either build up in our food chain, in the animals, and then subsequently to us if we're consuming seafood from this area, or it can distribute into other ecosystems. So depending on currents and stuff like that, it can actually travel to other areas on our coast. So it's not just a local issue. Bioaccumulation, if you're not familiar, it's that buildup of metals. And that's a really, really big deal for some of our most iconic species that we get here. We've got our southern resident killer whales that call these waters home, which are critically endangered. And we've also got a threatened population of Biggs killer whales, which are transients to the mammal eaters. And they are actually, research has found, the most contaminated animals on record in the entire world. So we can't really be affording to be putting more pollutants into their ecosystem. Of course, we've also got the shellfish side of things. There's a human health issue because we don't want those metals building up in the food that we are eating and exporting across the world. Another issue that we see with these heavy metals, they can cause what's called acute fatalities in really high levels. So essentially fish die-offs. And for a species like Pacific herring, which again, one of the last strongholds for them here and also a struggling species as it is, they spawn near shore, so close to the shoreline where the shipbreaking is happening. In instances where we get large amounts of these heavy metals in the environment, it can cause fish kills, so acute mortality, and also kill the larvae and the eggs that are on the shoreline. We have a massive herring spawn that happens over Denby and Hornby Island. It's just kind of wrapped up for the season, and that's what really is at risk, is that foundation of our food web here. Third, heavy metals can also persist at low levels. And when they persist at low levels, they can cause population effects. So you're not going to get those immediate kills, but you're going to get mortality and population effects over a long period of time. Heavy metals can cause malformities. It really affects juvenile fish when they're in their larval stage. And it can cause them to not grow as fast or to grow in irregular ways, which can affect their overall survival and then breach population dynamics. In addition to herring, we also have Pacific sand lance here, which, like herring, are really important forage fish. And they spawn in this area too, also a really important part of our food web. I actually had the pleasure of speaking to a representative from Deepwater this week, and I asked them about the issue of heavy metals. And the response was that, well, this area might be, and I'm saying this, naturally metallic from other industries that have happened here in the past. So the coal mining, copper mining, I know, and also the log booms that have that were in Union Bay previously. Logs. And I think, this is just my personal opinion, and I'll leave you with this and let you take this home with you. If this is already an area that is at risk for being of unacceptable levels of heavy metals, should we be contributing more to the ecosystem through this industry? I'm not here to answer that question for you. I'll let you think on that, but that's just something we really should consider when we're thinking about the future of our ecosystem here, is if we want to continue putting this area at threat when historically we've treated it pretty roughly. So I think here is a good time to go forward and do the right thing and act in a way that is precautionary to protect the amazing ecosystem that we have in Baynes Sound and throughout British Columbia. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hard to take questions, but maybe a couple of questions. Any questions?
Any questions for the people who can't hear Barb?
So the Environmental Protection Agency was examining this site up until March 15th. Now they're on a Environmental Protection Agency that is hired, they have their own consultants that's doing reports to them. Have you ever seen any of those reports? They were supposed to file one on the 15th of April, and I can't find it.
No, I've only had access to the testing that was done in 2022.
What is
So
the
the question was, have we seen any of the recent testing results from the environmental agencies that finished up just this March on the 15th? And I haven't seen that
Well,
yet
the
either.
15th you can get, but after that, they've now hired their own consultants to do the Environmental Protection Agency's work. And those reports are not available for the public. Have you seen them? If you talk to these folks, have you seen them?
I have not seen them, but in my conversation with the representative from Deepwater, he said that he would send me anything I wanted, so I will ask.
Oh, yeah. We'd like to see that publicly too.
Any other questions?
Way up here.
Yeah,
Thank you, Sydney.
Nice hand for Sydney, please.
I think we've got one more from the young man in front.
Yeah, boy. He'll ask you. He'll ask you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for your time and thank you for showing up today.
Our next speaker is the president of Concerned Citizens for Baynes Sound. Please welcome. Applause, please, for Ray Rucastle.
Thanks, everybody for being here. Gord, Daniel, all our support. It's been a long go. Rob Kerr, he's probably one of our longest serving members. He started this battle 3 years ago. And as we've all come on board, it's been a battle. And, we thought things would happen quicker with our provincial government anyway. But I mean, Gord made a good point about gaps. And if you look at all the gaps, whether it's with the regional district, whether it's with the feds, whether it's with the provincial government, you know why they're here. Is because they couldn't do this. And when I talk to companies in the United States, this would never be allowed on the coastline in the US. In Mexico, it's not allowed. Why are they here? Because they knew exactly what our faults were and where we were lacking. And with everybody here today, I think I believe we're changing course now. And I believe we'll get back our Baynes Sound and we'll be able to clean it up. And we'll do what we can to make sure that this doesn't happen again. This is not just little old Union Bay. These are very intelligent, dedicated individuals to make changes. So with that, I'd like to just thank everybody and have some cake and enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. Please welcome our next speaker, Counselor for Parksville, Sean Wood, everybody.
Thanks very much. I'm not here in an official capacity for the city of Parksville. I'm also on the regional district of Nanaimo as a director. I'm not here in an official capacity of that. I did run against Gord back in 2019. I want to thank all of you for coming out. This is what makes change happen. Just like Daniel and Gord were saying, I want to thank Daniel and Gord for the work they've obviously been doing. But one thing I wanted to mention, it's kind of a story of Gord and I running against each other, is that we would have an environmental debate put on by Dogwood and Courtenay, and one of the candidates just wouldn't show up. I'm not going to mention the party or the person's name, but you know, part of this job being elected is to show up, right? Even if the questions are going to be difficult, or maybe there's some in-camera court proceedings, then at least show up and say that. The same person didn't show up in Tofino debates, and you know, maybe they didn't think they were going to get any votes in Tofino, but show up. When you're elected, you show up. And so I was going to try to introduce MLA Josie Osborne, but I don't believe she's here today. And if she's, you know, there's court proceedings, you can't speak to something, at least show up and say that. You know, Daniel is also involved, and he just said what he could and didn't say anything else. And I think that the voters deserve people to show up and at least answer some tough questions and avoid the questions they legally can't. Anyways, that's what I wanted to say today. Thank you very much for coming out. This is how the change happens.
I'd like to now introduce, she is the Director of Concerned Citizens of Baynes Sound. Please welcome Marilyn Manning, everybody.
I'm not sure at this point what more I have to say or what has been said, but I just want to thank Cobbs specifically. We've been at this fight since 2020, when the first ship showed up. And when we asked the Ministry of Forests why we weren't notified, they couldn't give us a clear answer. And then through the Freedom of Information, we found out that the First Nations as far down as the Malahat were consulted. And I respectfully agree that First Nations should be consulted. But the families that live less than 10 feet with 2 small children were not consulted or informed about this hazardous operation happening. And then when we asked if there was an appeal process, they said, no appeal process. We made the decision. So I went to the Ombudsman to ask for answers, and that is still up for review. But I want to thank everybody for coming, and I want to thank our partners for coming and making this rally possible. But I specifically want to thank Cobbs for the